So, you're into aviation and want to get professional with Planespotting, but you're not sure how much money you want to or should spend when getting gear like a camera, lens, and all that stuff. Well, today I'm going to show you my setup, all my gear, tell you the cost, as well as the pros and cons of having a cheap versus expensive setup. Back in 2020, I became obsessed with aviation, and that included going planespotting. But back then, I planespotted on an iPhone 11, which really didn't cut it. But due to me being a poor child, I had to stick with it for about 3 years until the start of this year, where I bought myself a proper camera, a proper lens, as well as Adobe editing apps and SD cards. The camera that I shoot all of my photos on is the Samsung GX10, which is a DSLR camera from the early to late 2000s. The camera is very reliable and it's been great for the shots that I've wanted to take from my local airport at Melbourne, as well as Sydney Airport. The camera retails at around $400. I personally got mine for $350, so you can find cheaper deals, but the more expensive, usually the more quality on the camera, the less use on the camera, but mine works perfectly and I got it for $350. When you're just starting out with a camera, they can be quite confusing, but the Samsung GX10 is very easy to learn on, especially if you just start off with auto for a tiny, like maybe the first few weeks while you practice with it, but I do suggest switching to manual, because you can get much better shots, as auto can hold you back with the shots that you take. If you do choose to get the Samsung GX10, it will come with the D Xenon 18-55mm lens, and what it means by 18-55mm is those are the measurements that you can zoom in by, and that is very small. When you're planespotting, you're usually going to want between 200 to 350. If you do have a massive budget, you can get a 400mm one, but those are very expensive, some retailing at above $6,000. The lens that I personally use is the Tamron 80-210mm lens. The full name is on screen if you want to have a look at it in store, and link in the description, but it goes for about $60 at a high price, $60 to $40, which is amazing price, and the lens works perfectly for me. Although almost all of the versions of this lens you'll find are pre-owned, the one I had to go is pre-owned, and it was about $50, but it works perfectly, and it's an amazing price compared to some of the other lenses out there. It works amazingly. Now when you're doing aviation photography, you're going to need an SD card, and depending on what camera you have, it'll be usually different SD cards. In the manual of your camera, it'll usually recommend you what SD cards to use. I personally use the SanDisk 32 and 64GB SD cards. For sizes, it'll also depend on your camera, depending on what quality it saves it at, and how often you take photos and how long you take photos for. If you take high quality photos and for long periods of time, I'd recommend 64 and above. But if you shoot your photos in relatively a lower quality, then you can get past with a 16 to 32GB SD card. When planespotting, a lot of people use tripods to keep their shots steady. I personally don't, but they can be a really good investment if you find it a lot easier to shoot that way. So while I can't really recommend you a specific tripod, if you find it a bit hard to get the stable shots, especially since aircraft move very fast, then I would recommend investing in a tripod. What I see a lot of people put off when getting a camera is getting a camera cleaning kit. It is essential to have one, because no matter how hard you try, your camera's going to get dirty, and that's going to lower the quality of your shots. You're going to get stains on your lens, which will show in your photos, and they can ruin amazing photos. So I got a $3 one off of eBay, and it's lasted me about the full year. It's amazing, and it works really well, and I probably won't have to replace it for another year. And the price for it is literally only $3, and I think that includes like $2 shipping, but I'm not sure. That is all the gear that I have, but aside from gear, you're also going to need a site to edit the photos that you've got. I personally use Adobe sites like Lightroom and Photoshop. There are free versions of Lightroom. I'm not sure about Photoshop. There are free other websites you can use to edit, as well as just the Photos app on your phone. But if you want the full kind of best experience when editing, I'd suggest investing in Photoshop, because it's amazing. It's got all the features you could ever want, and I learnt it very easily after a few YouTube tutorials. If there are any tips or gear that I missed in this video, please tell me down in the comments, and if I didn't, make sure to like and subscribe for future videos. Thanks.